Welcome to WCNC Charlotte's Off the Clock with Carboni podcast. I am your host, WCNC Charlotte Sports Director Nick Carboni. I'm on WCNC Charlotte 6 and 11 on weeknights and after Sunday Night Football, and hopefully we're talking about another big Panthers win this weekend. This has been a really fun podcast to put together. We've had great conversations over the last 3 months. We are in our third month now. It all started with 16-year NFL safety Eugene Robinson telling us about the glory years of the Green Bay Packers with Brett Favre and Reggie White, to last week going all in on NASCAR. We had a bonus podcast with Brad Keselowski as the playoffs continue, and also had a great conversation with Performance Racing Network's Doug Rice. So quick favor, if you can, subscribe or follow wherever you're listening or watching, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any way you're getting this. We love that you're getting it. Please let us know that you are. That helps us greatly. So this week's conversation, a fun one, and I maybe oversold it just a tad on Twitter the other day, saying it was somebody with big Hornets and North Carolina ties. No, it is not Michael Jordan. If we ever get MJ, you will know. You will be the first to know. This is a great guest, though. He did something MJ, I don't believe, did as the tournament's most outstanding player as a Tar Heel. Only about 5 guys have ever done that. And now he is part of the Hornets organization, was with their G League team in Greensboro last year, and was in the little mini camp, mini bubble that they had a couple weeks ago. And his point guard, Joel Berry II, or as head coach Roy Williams always called him, tough little nut. And that was because Joel has just this unbelievable ability to play through injuries. And, you know, wait till you hear some of the stuff he went through while he led the Tar Heels to a national championship in 2017. I hadn't heard some of the stuff. It's truly amazing. But the good thing about Joel and injuries is right now he is injury-free, so he's really excited to see what he can do with his game in his third season as a professional whenever they get going again. So enjoy my conversation with Joel Berry II. All right, Joel, this podcast is called Off the Clock, but we're going to put you on the clock for about a minute here with some rapid-fire questions. Who is your top challenger on the ping pong table at Hornets camp?
PJ Washington.
You guys have some battles?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was some good battles. It was close too.
Who got the best of who?
When it was all said and done.
I think it ended up being tied 2-2.
You can break that tie when camp returns. Halloween's coming up in a few weeks. What is your most memorable Halloween costume, growing up to right now?
Oh man, I think that's kind of hard because I just dressed up as a basketball player.
Typical, right? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of hard to plan an outfit. So just a basketball player was my go-to.
And last question, would you start on the Hornets Venom 2K team?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think I've been practicing, especially during this time with the quarantine. I think I've gotten good with the controls, but I do have to give my respect to those guys. They're really good. So I'll probably be on the low end, but I think I can compete though.
We hope you start
practicing real basketball again soon. I know you guys are anxious to come back. So what was it like to be in this little Hornets mini camp in-market bubble for a couple of weeks here?
Yeah, going into it, you didn't know what to expect, but the Hornets organization and everybody around did a good job of planning it out, and everything went smooth. Everything was planned. They had things for us to do outside of just going back and laying down and hanging around the hotel. We could go golf and do tennis and stuff, but overall, man, it was just great to be able to get back out on the court. It's been a while since we've been able to do 5-on-5, so it was a great time.
So what do you do now while you just have this indefinite waiting period? Not just physically, because I know you're taking care of yourself and you're working out, but what do you do mentally now to stay ready for when you guys come back?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm huge in my faith, so this gives me a chance to stay in tune with my faith and continue to grow as a Christian and continue to build myself spiritually. I have my wife and my dog here, so we can get out and about. Probably go to the pumpkin patch and do some pictures and stuff there. Family stuff, and so that's the stuff that keeps me mentally in the right places when I can be, like I said, growing my faith, but have my wife and my dog here, and family here that I can spend time with. So that keeps me in the right space of mind and kind of gets my mind off of, just sitting here, just waiting around and figuring out what's going on next.
I know for me, like, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but it's almost like you start focusing more on a lot of other things besides work and what you do for a living in your craft, and that's all great, but it gives us time to kind of just refocus a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we kind of lose sight of it with the demands from our jobs and stuff and what we do. And so it gives me a time to, we're always busy. So it gave me a time to, spend time with my family, with like I said, the demands that basketball has on us. And so it was a blessing in disguise to be able to have this time to be able to do some of the things that I necessarily wouldn't do on a daily basis.
So when, in terms of actually keeping physically ready, where do you work out? Like, how do you do that without access to the facility?
Yeah. So, I have a good friend of mine, and that was the trainer down in Greensboro, Tyler Lesher. He's been big on the kettlebell. So I've been down in First Ward Park, doing kettlebell stuff. So man, it's been great being able to still be able to get outside and soak up some of that sun. But also still being able to put the work in and keeping my body in the right state of mind and in shape. So that's really what I've been doing. And then, I find time to get out on the court. But during this time, I just really want to take really hone in on just making sure my mobility and my body is in the right place. As you see with all the injuries and stuff that have been happening with the NFL, man, it's been crazy. So that's the one thing that I've been focusing on.
Take me back to growing up in Apopka, Florida. Do you remember what's your first memory of basketball?
Oh man, probably I had two older sisters, and when I was little, I mean, really small, my mom, she was a little bit nervous, so I had on the headbands, I had on the elbow braces, the knee pads. So yeah, that was the first time that's what I remember. And my mom and dad threw me out on the court with my sisters. I was just begging to get out on the court and just to play. I wasn't any good, but I just wanted to run around.
How did your sisters feel about you being out there with them?
Yeah, well, we're a close knit family, so they didn't mind it. I'm pretty sure they didn't mind it, but you know how it is, the little nagging younger brother who can kind of get in the way a lot. So that was probably me, but at the time I didn't care.
Yeah, I have one of those, so I get it. But were you a Magic fan growing up? You were born in '95, so that was like when Shaq left. So like, who was your team? Who were your players that you liked watching in the NBA?
Yeah, see, I didn't grow up watching NBA much. I mean, my family, I grew up doing karate. Basketball in itself took a lot of our time. So really, we were just an active family when I was younger. So I didn't grow up, but of course I knew about the Magic, and but by the time I really understood, what basketball and the NBA was, Orlando Magic was unfortunately not a good team. So, but so I really didn't have a team growing up. I just watched the NBA, but never really had a team. And then of course, all the other sports, it kind of wasn't good as well either. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, basketball and me growing up and my family being so active, that's what really took a lot of our time. So
you did karate. So do you still do that? And this is like, sometimes it's the dumbest question, but sometimes it gets a fun answer. Like, does that help with basketball?
Yeah, I don't do much of karate. My dad still does it. But I mean, honestly, I don't do any karate, but I still probably could pull out some moves if I had to. But yeah, so I can't, it doesn't relate to basketball for me because I don't do it. But seeing online and seeing some of the stuff that some of these instructors do, they say it translates over to basketball, which is, understandable. I think anything that we do can translate over to it. So.
What was your first scholarship offer? And what do you remember about it? And was there what was the point you thought, like, and you and your family thought, like, okay, this is going to get kind of big? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, so my decision, I played football in high school and basketball going into high school. And then it was my first AAU circuit being on the EYBL. And I ended up getting my first offer from Kansas my sophomore year.
Mhm.
And that's when we knew that, basketball was something that it was going to get serious, and that it was, as you know, I mean, the recruiting process gets crazy with all the phone calls and all the new rules and stuff that the coaches can do. So once we got that first offer from Kansas, that's when we knew, the big time colleges were going to start coming. You get your in-state schools, but when Kansas came and offered me, that's when we knew that it was going to get crazy.
What was your first experience with North Carolina, and when did you meet Roy?
Yeah, so I had being on the EYBL circuit, the coaches sit down on the court, and they came to quite a bit of our games. And but my first encounter that I remember was when they first opened up the like I said, with the rules, they opened up at midnight for the coaches to be able to call the players. And that was the first phone call that I got was from Coach Williams. And he offered me then, and kind of right then I kind of knew that I wanted to go there, but of course I stayed open to the whole process, just to make sure that I was making the right decision. But yeah, when he first called me and offered me, man, that was a blessing, and I was honestly shocked, but it was a good feeling.
What were your impressions of him then?
So me and my mom, we grew up watching him, so we kind of had, our thoughts about him, and we just loved, his intensity and how he coached. And, they would show the cameras and he'll be there, yelling at the guys, in a good way, and trying to just hype everybody up. So, man, when he called me, it was just like, I already knew what kind of guy he was just by, seeing him from afar. And so when I finally got a chance to meet him and meet him in person and get the chance to talk to him, you see the intensity that you see on, from afar and through the TV. So it was great being able to finally meet him for the first time.
All right, just a quick break to thank you for listening, to ask you again to hit follow or subscribe, and to give us a watch on WCNC Charlotte every night. Again, sports you can see 6 and 11 Monday through Friday. Also, Ashley Stroline doing a great job handling the weekends with all the college football coming back now. College basketball coming soon too. And we are on after Sunday Night Football on NBC every Sunday, hopefully talking about a big Panthers win this week. Here's the rest of my conversation with Joel. We're getting into the really good parts of his time at North Carolina, the national championship, the Luke May shot and his view of that, and just what he went through as Roy Williams' tough little nut and those injuries that were brutal. Take a listen. You may not want to answer this because you are Mr. Tar Heel, but if you didn't go to North Carolina, let's say that program didn't exist, where do you think Joel Berry would have ended up? Yeah,
I probably would have stayed in state and probably would have went to Florida or Kansas. Those were my next two options. Being a Florida boy, that was obviously my next choice, but Kansas as well. I mean, with Kansas being the powerhouse that it is. So, and the good thing, it still stays in the family because Coach loves Kansas still.
Right.
And that's close to his heart. So it's still in the family, which is acceptable.
More than a lot of programs, North Carolina just seems to be one of those places where when you get there as a player, it's, they're going to tell you about what you're, the family that you're entering and the basketball organization and the history, and you're probably going to feel it too. So what was it like to actually put on the uniform for the first time and join that program? I mean, do you feel that history connected to you right away?
Yeah, you do. And I think at the time while you're playing and you're trying to find your way in the program, you're trying to first and foremost find your way from, not living at home and being on your own kind of for the first time. So, you can kind of get lost in it and you don't realize how deep the family is. And, when I say family, I look outside the players too, because you have a lot of people who are just alumni of the university who, that family still runs there. So, everywhere you go here in Carolina, I can be back home in Florida, and if there's a Carolina fan, they know who you are. And so everywhere I go, there's always a Carolina fan. And so that's why when people tell me family, I think about the players and, the alumni from the players and stuff. But, that family runs a little bit deeper when you get into, people who have graduated from Carolina and who are Carolina fans.
What is it like to play in the Carolina Duke game? Like the first time you get into that game, is there a moment where you're like, I'm actually playing in the North Carolina Duke rivalry game? I mean, I know you're focused and it's a frenzy, but there's got to be a moment where you kind of take that in a little bit.
Yeah, man, it was crazy when the first game that I was a part of that. I mean, the game itself, but also the week leading up to the game. I mean, people are going crazy. Especially when it's a home game. You walk up to practice, people are already camping out, ready for the game. And it's just a whole hype around the whole thing. ESPN does a whole thing, about rivalry week and shows all the games from before I was even born. So it's just like, man, it's the whole, just the hype around it is great. But the first game that I was kind of, starstruck a little bit. My eyes were a little big. But once I got into the game, I was fine. But leading up to it, man, I was just in shock about how, serious people take that rivalry.
I think you capped it off, at least regular season wise, with 28 points at the Smith Center. Was that the ceiling is the roof game?
I think it was.
Were you guys in the locker room when he said that? Like, when did you hear that and notice that took off?
Yeah, we didn't hear it until after the game was over, and we were like asking people what happened, and everybody just kept talking about it. And then anything that Jordan says, they're gonna slap it on the shirt or put it on something, and they're gonna put it out and sell it. So after he said that, I mean, I kid you not, it was shirts and everything going around. The ceiling is the roof, and I'm like, oh man. Yeah, but we didn't hear about it until after the game. So
he's your boss now, so you might want to, we'll cap it there. But I want to talk about the shot, the good one though. When I look at Luke May's shot against Kentucky, because I looked at it this morning because I wanted to see what your view of it was, and I kind of walked away thinking like he might have had the best view of any guy on the floor because you were kind of top of the key, you were drifting. I mean, you had like a field of vision of Luke in the basket. Take me through that moment because, I mean, everything was on the line. Did you think it was going in when it came out of his hand?
Yeah. I mean, that whole moment leading up to it, we should have had the game, easily, but Malik Monk, who is a great, came and hit those 3-pointers at the end of the game. And so just going through my head when Theo was bringing the ball down, I'm like, okay, how can we get the best shot? And I mean, Luke was just right there in the right moment. And, we know who Luke is. A lot of people didn't know who Luke was and the confidence that he had as a player. But when it went up, man, I was just hoping and praying that it would go in. And when it went in, all I could do was just run over there and just jump on him.
That was the next thing I saw.
Yeah, I jumped up. Right, I had to celebrate, man, and that he stepped up in a big time moment, and that's what it's about. But I was praying that it went in, and it ended up going in. And like I said, all I could do was just jump on him and celebrate.
I mean, that was such a great run. Obviously, culminated with the national championship, and there were all the stories about your ankles and how hurt you were. Like, what did it take for you to play in games at that level? To the level where you were as the most outstanding player of the Final Four. I mean, what was it like day to day getting up and getting ready to play?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like on this level, just being a professional. And, being a professional is showing up each and every day, doing the things that you need to do to be able to put your body and put yourself in a position to succeed. And that's what I did. I mean, I spent late hours. I think I had rolled my ankle in the first round, and we were in South Carolina. And I actually had to drive to Charlotte after our practice to get treatment from one of the guys that we knew here that was really good with rehab. And so that by itself, and then just throughout the whole tournament, man, staying up late with the trainer, getting treatment. And, in the Kentucky game, when I rolled it again, I thought that was like I thought I was done. I walked over to the sideline, and it was actually a picture of me like with my head down, and that was really my feeling was like, man, I think I might be done. And I went back into the locker room and kind of got myself together and realized that this was what we were doing was bigger than just myself. Even if I wasn't 100%, I knew me just being out on the court and me being out there showing my competitiveness would help my teammates. And so no matter how I felt, man, I just tried to get up each and every day and just show up and be the best that I could be. It was times where I could barely walk getting up out of bed. And but once I got moving, it felt better. But yeah, man, I almost didn't, follow through with it. But like I said, I realized that this was bigger than myself and that we had promised ourselves that we would make it back to the national championship and win it. So that was what motivated me to get up each and every day.
Does Roy still call you a tough little nut?
He does.
You like
He
that
does.
nickname?
Yeah, he does, man. I love that name and to have it from him, man. That's special. But yeah, he still calls me that. I actually talked to him when I was in the bubble, and that's what he called me. So, yeah, it's special to have that name from him.
I mean, you have the national championship at North Carolina. I see the two behind you there. That is in the rafters now at the Smith Center, right? So what does that all mean to you to enter a program like we talked about and the history and the family-like atmosphere, and to have that national championship and to have number 2 in the rafters?
Yeah, that was something my parents told me to keep my eye on is, don't worry about the ups and downs that goes with, being, in this program and just being in the, in the sport of basketball. But as you know, with anything that we do in our jobs, we have our ups and we have our downs. But they told me to stay focused on leaving a legacy. And that's what I wanted to do was when I left Carolina, I wanted to leave a legacy for people to remember. And part of being remembered, I wanted to have my jersey in the rafters. And when that was actually the first thing when I took my official visit and we went in there and looked and saw all the jerseys up there, I was like, man, it would be nice to have my name up there. And that was something that I just kept my eye on, having my jersey in the rafters. But first and foremost was to win a national championship. And so I kept my mind focused on that throughout all the ups and downs. And, my resume and what I did and, that speaks for itself. But yeah, man, that's how I got through. And that was the biggest thing for me was just leaving a legacy for people to remember and for younger kids and the younger generation to be able to see what I was able to do when I was there.
When you came to Greensboro, was that a bit of a breath of fresh air? Was that kind of like a little bit of a homecoming for you?
Yeah, man, my first year in the league was kind of tough. Still battled the ankle injury. So, being out in LA, it was a great opportunity, great experience, being able to see LeBron in the flesh and, how he approaches the game. It was a great time out there in LA and a great learning experience for me. So being back in Greensboro was great from, not only myself, my wife, this is where we know. But it kind of felt good to be back in the fans, in front of the fans and get that, to be in tune with them and to get that support again.
You said the other day that, you feel fully healthy now. What does that feel like for you and how has that helped?
Yeah, man, it feels awesome, man. And when I say like I'm really healthy, I'm very healthy from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint. Not a lot of people understand what it takes to be able to, physically, yeah, but mentally to come back from an injury and to be able to trust your body again. And I was able to do that. And, now, like I said, mentally, I'm in a great place. And not only just with basketball, man, my life, I have a wife now. And all of that stuff, man, it's just falling into place. And I feel on top of the world right now, man. And I'm just excited for what's to come next. Your
pinned tweet is the comeback is going to be crazy. # write your story. So where is your story right now?
My story is, a lot of people have counted me out, and that's kind of why I pinned that on there. for people to understand. So when I finally get my chance to show that I belong in the NBA, people can go back and look at my Twitter, and that's the first thing that pops up is that, this is something that's been, a journey and a process for me. And I put it out there, and now I'm just writing my story. This is my story. My journey is to, show that I belong in the NBA. And while everybody counted me out, people have forgotten about me. And when I finally get my time, I just want people reactions just to be, man, where did he come from? We thought he left. No, I'm still right here. And it's just a process.
Joel's got some great perspective on life and his basketball career already. I hope it lasts 10, 12 more years, but he's got a really bright future after that. Can't thank him enough for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you to the Hornets for setting that up on a moment's notice. We got Joel, and really hoping to see Joel at camp whenever that starts, hopefully soon, and in the NBA this year with big league club, the Charlotte Hornets. So thank you again for listening to WCNC Charlotte's Off the Clock with Carboni podcast. We'll have another one for you next Friday.